The sun in Los Angeles has a certain quality, a kind of cinematic glow that seems to bleach the color out of everything, leaving behind a brilliant, almost unreal sheen. Here, on Rodeo Drive, that light bounces off the impossibly glossy bonnets of cars that cost more than most houses. A Bentley, the color of polished onyx, purrs silently at the curb, its driver waiting patiently, sunglasses hiding any hint of expression. Women with faces pulled taut and lips plumped into permanent, serene smiles drift in and out of boutiques. Gucci, Prada, Chanel. The air itself seems different here, scented with expensive perfume and the faint, clean smell of money. It's an environment so perfectly curated it feels less like a real place and more like a film set. The palm trees stand like sentinels, their fronds rustling in a gentle breeze. Even the pavement seems cleaner, scrubbed free of the usual urban grime. I watched a young woman emerge from a jeweler's, a tiny branded bag clutched in her hand. She spoke into her phone, her voice a light, unbothered murmur, discussing plans for a weekend trip to Cabo as if it were a trip to the local supermarket. There's a strange performance to it all. The wealth isn't just owned, it's displayed, worn like a costume. Security guards standing discreetly by the doorways of the high-end stores are part of this performance. Their presence a quiet reminder that this world is exclusive, a members-only club. You don't just wander in, you have to belong. The transaction is not just about buying a handbag or a watch, it's about reaffirming your status, your place within this gilded cage where the everyday concerns of the vast majority of the city's inhabitants simply cease to exist. I found myself wondering what it must be like to live with this as your normal. To see a $5,000 price tag and not flinch, to have your biggest worry of the day be whether the restaurant can accommodate your dietary requests or if the traffic on the PCH will delay your arrival in Malibu. It's a bubble. A beautiful, fragile, and profoundly isolating one. Just a few miles east, but a universe away, the Los Angeles sun beats down with a different kind of intensity. Here, on the streets of Skid Row, there is no cinematic glow, only a harsh, unforgiving glare. The light exposes everything. The grime on the pavements, the tattered edges of makeshift tents, the weariness etched onto people's faces. The air is thick with a mixture of smells: stale urine, uncollected rubbish, exhaust fumes from the endless stream of trucks rumbling past. The soundscape is a cacophony of shouts, sirens, the rattling of shopping carts pushed by people carrying their entire world with them. This is not a film set, it is stark, unfiltered reality. The sheer scale of it is what first hits you. Block after block, the sidewalks are lined with a sprawling encampment of tents, tarpaulins, cardboard shelters. It's a city within a city, one built from desperation and resilience. People are trying to create some semblance of a home in the most public of spaces. I saw a man carefully sweeping the small patch of pavement in front of his tent with a broken broom. Another woman was meticulously arranging a small collection of found objects on a crate, turning it into a makeshift bedside table. It's a place of constant motion and profound stillness. People are always on the move, pushing carts, queuing for food at a mission, or simply walking with no clear destination. Yet many more are simply waiting. Waiting for a shelter bed to open up, waiting for a meal, waiting for some kind of change that may never come. I spoke briefly with a man who introduced himself as Michael. He sat on an overturned bucket, watching the world go by.
You learn to be invisible here. People look through you. It's safer that way, I guess, but it's lonely.
The infrastructure of a functioning society has completely broken down here. Public toilets are scarce and often locked, forcing people to find alternatives. Access to clean water is a daily struggle, the very things that people in Beverly Hills take for granted. A roof, a lockable door, a private bathroom, a sense of safety, are unimaginable luxuries on Skid Row. The contrast is not just about money, it's about a fundamental difference in human dignity. It's a stark reminder that in the same city, under the same sun, some lives are valued so much more than others. From inside, the rest of Los Angeles, with its struggles and its noise and its desperation, must seem very far away indeed, a distant rumor from another world easily tuned out by the hum of a luxury engine. In a minimalist Bel Air mansion, I met a woman named Chloe. Her home was a study in glass and white marble, with a view that stretched all the way to the Pacific Ocean. She was a tech entrepreneur who had sold her company for, she said with a slight shrug, a life-changing amount.
LA is the land of opportunity. If you have a vision and the drive to see it through, there are no limits here. I work hard, I employ people, I pay my taxes. I don't feel guilty about my success.
Chloe's days were a meticulously scheduled whirlwind of Pilates classes, board meetings, charity luncheons. She worried about her children's private school applications and the logistics of their upcoming ski trip to Aspen.
Of course, I'm aware there are people struggling in this city. We donate, of course. My foundation supports a few local shelters. But at the end of the day, you can't solve everyone's problems. You have to focus on your own life, your own family. It's about personal responsibility, isn't it?
Later, in a cramped East LA apartment he shared with two other families, I spoke with a man named Javier. He worked two jobs, one as a dishwasher in a downtown restaurant, the other as a cleaner for a commercial firm. He left for his first shift before his children woke up, and often returned after they were asleep. His hands were raw and chapped from the constant exposure to hot water and cleaning chemicals.
Opportunity? The only opportunity I see is to work harder for less. The rent goes up every year, but my pay stays the same. I just try to keep my head above water.
Javier's biggest worry was not about ski trips, but about what would happen if he got sick. He had no health insurance and couldn't afford to take a day off.
If I miss work, we don't eat.
He spoke of his dream for his children to get a good education, to have a better life than his, but he saw the odds stacked against them. For him, personal responsibility meant sacrificing his own health and well-being for the slim chance that his family might one day escape the cycle of poverty. The city that Chloe saw as a land of limitless opportunity felt to Javier like a trap. The chasm between Chloe's world and Javier's didn't appear by accident. It has been carved out over decades by a confluence of economic and social forces. One of the primary drivers is the changing nature of the job market in Los Angeles. The city once had a robust manufacturing sector, providing stable, middle-class jobs for people without a college degree. Those jobs have largely vanished, replaced by a polarized economy. On one end, you have high-paying jobs in tech, finance, entertainment. On the other, you have a massive service sector filled with low-wage jobs in hospitality, retail, domestic work, the very jobs that keep the city running for the wealthy. This hourglass economy creates a huge gap with a hollowed-out middle. There are fewer and fewer pathways for someone like Javier to climb into the middle class. For someone in the upper echelons of LA society, a typical day is often a carefully managed exercise in self-optimization. The morning might begin not with an alarm clock, but with a personal trainer arriving for a private yoga session on a sun-drenched patio. Breakfast is not a hurried affair, but a nutritious, organic meal, perhaps prepared by a personal chef. The commute, if it exists at all, is often a short drive in a luxury vehicle to a sleek Century City office or a home office with panoramic views. The workday is structured around meetings and creative endeavors, with tasks like grocery shopping, cleaning, and childcare outsourced to an army of service workers. The afternoon might involve a business lunch at a restaurant, where the bill could cover a low-income family's weekly food budget. Leisure is not a luxury, but an integral part of the schedule. A round of golf at a private country club, a facial at a high-end spa, or shopping for art in a gallery. Evenings are for socializing at exclusive charity galas, film premieres, or private dinner parties in sprawling mansions. For a low-income resident, the day is a battle against friction. It begins long before dawn with a blaring alarm in a crowded apartment. The first challenge is the commute, often involving multiple bus transfers that can take up to 2 hours each way. The workday is physically demanding and mentally draining, spent on their feet, performing repetitive tasks for minimum wage. There are no personal chefs or trainers. Lunch is whatever can be eaten quickly during a short break. The constant stress is not about optimizing one's life, but simply about surviving the day without a crisis. The journey home is just as long and exhausting. The evening is not for socializing, but for catching up on chores, helping children with homework in a cramped space, and trying to prepare for the next day. The primary worries are immediate and existential. Will there be enough money for rent? What if a child gets sick? According to a recent study from the University of Southern California, Los Angeles County has one of the highest Gini coefficients of any major U.S. metro. In simpler terms, the gap between the city's richest and poorest residents is exceptionally wide. The top 5% of households in Los Angeles County earn, on average, more than 12 times what the bottom 20% of households earn. Imagine a single street where one family brings in over $500,000 a year, while their neighbors, just a few doors down, are trying to survive on less than $40,000. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. It's the lived reality in many parts of the city. This disparity is particularly stark when you look at wealth. The total assets a person owns, property, stocks, where the gap is even more cavernous than the income gap. Despite its image of glamour and affluence, Los Angeles has one of the highest poverty rates among major U.S. cities when the cost of living is taken into account. Nearly 1 in 5 residents of LA County lives below the poverty line. That's almost 2 million people struggling to afford basic necessities. Meanwhile, the city is also home to more than 170 billionaires. This concentration of extreme wealth and extreme poverty in one place is what makes LA's situation so particularly jarring and unsustainable. These numbers have real-world consequences. For instance, life expectancy can vary by more than a decade depending on which neighborhood you live in. A child born in affluent Brentwood can expect to live to be around 90 years old. Just 12 miles away in South LA's Watts neighborhood, the average life expectancy is closer to 77. That's a 13-year difference in lifespan, determined almost entirely by a postcode. These are not just figures on a page. They represent years of life, experiences, and opportunities that are either granted or denied by the invisible hand of inequality. Nowhere is the gap between the two LAs more consequential than in the realms of education and healthcare. These are the systems that should provide a foundation for a good life and a safety net when things go wrong. But in Los Angeles, they often reinforce existing inequalities. Beverly Hills, Santa Monica public schools often excellent. Massive fundraising from wealthy parents, extra teachers, arts programs, state-of-the-art technology. Private schools offer an even greater advantage. Annual tuitions can exceed a low-wage worker's entire yearly income. Direct pipelines to elite universities, tiny class sizes, individualized attention, network of powerful connections. In low-income neighborhoods, schools are underfunded, overcrowded, lacking basic resources. Teachers are overworked. Students face challenges beyond school: food insecurity, housing instability. The healthcare system mirrors this divide. Wealthy access, world-class medical care, concierge doctors, top specialists, best insurance plans, prompt preventative care, cutting-edge treatments. Health issues are managed inconveniences. They can take time off paid. For the poor and uninsured, the system is a labyrinth. Long waits in crowded clinics, emergency rooms as last resort. Preventable conditions become emergencies. Fear of medical debt keeps people from care. The American dream has long been intertwined with the idea of owning a home. But in Los Angeles, that dream has become a nightmare for an ever-increasing number of its residents. The city is at the epicenter of a housing crisis of staggering proportions, and this crisis is the engine driving much of the city's inequality. The fundamental problem is a severe lack of supply, especially of affordable homes. For decades, the construction of new housing has not kept pace with population and job growth, leading to fierce competition and sending prices spiraling into the stratosphere. For the wealthy, this has been a boon. Rising property values increase their net worth, and real estate becomes a lucrative asset class. They can outbid ordinary families for single-family homes, often with all-cash offers, further pushing up prices. But for the working and middle classes, the consequences are devastating. The median price of a single-family home in Los Angeles County has soared to a point where it is completely unattainable for anyone on a median income. Renting isn't much better, with the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment consuming more than half of the income of a typical service worker. This extreme cost burden has a cascading effect on people's lives. Families are forced to live in overcrowded conditions, multiple generations, multiple families sharing small apartments designed for one. Many become rent-burdened, meaning they spend an unsustainable portion of their income on housing, leaving little for food, healthcare, transportation, savings. This precarity means that a single unexpected event, a car repair, a medical bill, a reduction in work hours, can be the trigger that pushes a family into homelessness. The line between being housed and unhoused has become terrifyingly thin, and that leads to the most visible symptom of the housing crisis: the sprawling homeless encampments that have become a permanent feature of the city's landscape. Los Angeles County is home to over 75,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night. These are not just statistics. Former tenants, workers, neighbors who are priced out of their homes. They are the human cost of a broken housing market. Looking at the vast, seemingly unbridgeable gulf between the two LAs, it's easy to feel a sense of hopelessness. The problems are so entrenched, so systemic, that any potential solution can feel like a drop in